After $87 million has been drained from Bitcoin wallets, everyone is now rightfully scared and wondering, am I safe? Am I next? Should I send all my Bitcoin to BlackRock or Coinbase? So today we're going to be showing you all the new developments, all the information we have so far on what happened with this hack. And of course, as we saw, more wallets were drained over the weekend. We saw about 4 different attacks that happened. And of course, we're also going to be discussing what this means for Bitcoin if everyone is too scared to hold their own private keys. So, you know, this week is going to be a little different. We're going to try to do our best to do a normal show for you guys. But obviously, I think we're going to try to get a lot of security experts on the show, give you guys the tools so you guys are fully protected. But before all that, of course, that's going to be this week. Hopefully by the end of the week, we can kind of get back to normal. But without a doubt, one of the biggest days, one of the worst days in Bitcoin history, bar none, for all of us Bitcoiners. Yes, there's been other very bad days, but this one, it might be one of the worst. But anyways, let me get into this, guys. So as of now, wow. Before the show, it was 1,300. It is now 1,660.6296 Bitcoin that have been drained. Literally, before I started the show, it was like 1,390. So there was a couple really big ones that just happened. So obviously, guys, if you know, we're touching grass this weekend, there is a huge vulnerability in Coldcard. I would, and we were kind of recommending this, just get off Coldcard right now. If you haven't done it, like, it's only a matter of time until your coin is most likely going to get swept from Coldcard. Now, there is a bit of caveats here, and I'll get into that in a little bit. But as of now, 1,660 Bitcoin have been swiped from Coldcard because there was a vulnerability in the seed generation. And I am going to break all this down. Actually, where do I start? I think maybe here. I'll start here. This is a good write-up here, guys, to really explain what happened. So if you are interested in the more technical breakdown of this, I'm just going to kind of paraphrase here. Go to BTC Insider _. And there is when random bytes run but doesn't work. This is an article. It's going to tell you the technicals as much as we know. But just to break it down, essentially what happened, and this is in layman terms, guys, I am paraphrasing, but all weekend, all I basically did was just follow along on Twitter, try to understand exactly where the vulnerability was, what actually happened. And the best way that I can put it is essentially the Coldcard software from 2020 to, I guess, yesterday, pretty much, or sorry, Thursday and Friday, the random number generator, the true randomness. I'm sure you guys all heard of it, the entropy, just getting real randomness, pure randomness to create your seed phrase. Apparently, when they switched their code from C to Python, it was basically triggered off. It wasn't hitting the random number generator on the Coldcard, and so it was making a predictable seed. So it's basically extremely easy to brute force and guess the seed phrase. Now, if you want to get a little more technical on it, essentially most 12-word seed phrase have about 128 bips of entropy. Most 24 words have 256 bits of entropy, which is basically like uncrackable by the computation and the computers that we have right now. What happened was, essentially, if you were using an MK3 from the 2020, 2021 era, when you were creating a seed phrase, it had about 30 bits of entropy, which is not, it's almost at zero. It's just like, it's very hackable, very predictable. And then further, if you were using the MK4 up to the Q model, I think it had higher entropy, around like 70 bips, which is obviously lower than 128. So still predictable, but it essentially means you just have more time to get access to your Bitcoin. So now I'll break down exactly here. And also, huge shout out to Rob Hamilton. Actually, huge shout out to a lot of Bitcoiners on Twitter. This might be, and I know it's in a horrific incident, horrific hack, but there was a silver lining here that I saw over Twitter. And again, I'm going to show you what happened, but we are going to be, I think, talking about the broader implications. I don't want to make it all doom and gloom. Again, for clarity, This, as far as we know so far, and from all of the information that we have as of now, this is just a Coldcard specific issue. This is just one manufacturer. So everyone else, yes, we are all now kind of reevaluating how we custody our Bitcoin. And there's a broader conversation of like, self-custody's dead, which we talked about on Friday, but we'll probably get into that a little more today. Again, a Coldcard specific problem here, but I am going to cover, again, one of Rob Hamilton's really good threads, kind of explaining who's protected, who is still liable to lose their funds. And he did a really good thread. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but here's like the meat and potatoes. So Rob's saying the most common question he was getting right now is, you know, what would you do if you were in my shoes? Where would you send your Bitcoin to be safe? Am I safe? Who's liable to get hacked? And so here is basically up to date, the best kind of advice that we have up to now so that we can understand exactly what's going on. So if you or someone you know uses an MK3, an MK4, MK5, or Q in a single signature or a multi-signature where the Coldcard devices can move the funds on their own, example, 2 Coldcards in a ledger, you need to essentially get out of Coldcard. You need to update your cold storage. You basically need to do this immediately, okay? Anyways, if you are still not sure, here is the different forms to mitigate what's going on. And this is where the broader conversation was happening. We did talk about this a little bit on Friday of like, you know, multi-sig or multi-vendor, multi-sig, you know, rolling your own seed phrase, passphrases. That's where this conversation goes a little bit. So there are different forms in which you may have brought your own entropy. And I do want to make that clear that if you are on a Coldcard, and you didn't use the Coldcard to generate your seed and you added your own entropy, your own randomness with 100 dice rolls and or added a passphrase on top of that, as far as we can see for now, like you're safe, but I would just advise to get out of Coldcard just to be like paranoid and completely safe here. Do you want to chime in here, Nico, before I go on?
I was going to say the exact
Yeah. So like, look, our advice here, look, we were all we all had Coldcards. We're Coldcard users. I think most of Bitcoiners were.
I'll step in here too as well. Is like, you know, if I knew that you were technical enough, I would recommend a Coldcard. And we were was sponsored by Coldcard for, I think it was 3 or 4 months. So, you know, I think the broader lesson here is the idea of storing your life savings on a single signature wallet, all
in one place
on a single signature wallet. That idea died on July 30th of 2026, the day that will live in infamy. I would say it's one of the darkest days for the Bitcoin movement, because it has broader implications here, right? Like we always tell you, the mission of this show since the beginning is moving the cultural needle for broader Bitcoin adoption. And we believe that if more people take Bitcoin into self-custody, right, that's fundamentally going to change the world. And we've talked at length on why we believe that's the case. Now, if what the community perceives to be the gold standard of self-custody is now essentially, you know, it's over, right? Like, if there can be such a vulnerability in the flag, you know, product of Bitcoin maximalists, that's a huge hit to this movement. Right. And there's been people capitalizing on that, saying like, hey, I told you so, Bitcoiners, like, you know, this is what you get. It also doesn't help that there is a lot of hubris coming from the Coldcard team. But yeah, this is a big hit for the self-custody movement. There's no other way to, you know, dress that. Right. I think a lot of us trusted, you know, that this device was going to be safe in that regard. Now, I want to empathize a lot to the people that were affected by this. Like, it's absolutely horrible. It's atrocious what happened. And, you know, this is something that was pushed not only by ourselves, you know, during the sponsorship me personally recommending this to friends and families throughout the years. But that trust is now broken, right? Like there's no other way to say it. Like that trust is broken. So I can't, it's like, even if you use the dice rolls to create your entropy on the Coldcard, like I still do not recommend using the Coldcard as your hardware wallet. I would migrate. Now a lot of people, like a lot of these hardware wallet manufacturers are completely backlogged at the moment. But I would migrate to either a trusted exchange that you really, really trust. It hurts me like to the core saying that. Or move to a multi-signature setup if you know how to do that, right? Now we are, as Opti mentioned in the beginning of the show, there are different ways to do that, right? There's the multi-vendor, multi-sig setup with the kind of a collaborative custody, which I think is one of the easiest ways to do that. There's a bunch of service providers that do that, like Unchained, Casa, and Nunchuck. I would stay away from Nunchuck for a little bit because Nunchuck just came out that they were using the MK4 to create their entropy. So I would stay away from Nunchuck for the time being, but I think Casa and Unchained are great for the multi-sig, multi-vendor, collaborative custody, self-custody setups. And then there's also devices like the BitKey, one of our current partners, which is fantastic because it has multi-signature built into the device itself, right? But yes, the days of storing your life savings on a single signature a device are long gone. I wouldn't even recommend this with the existing manufacturers either, right? Like if you have if it's a token amount that you use for day-to-day spending, if you run a business and a part of that business, you have to, pay people with Bitcoin and stuff like that, and you have a token amount on a single signature device with the passphrase, totally understandable. I get that. But if you have your life savings, I would strongly recommend against keeping it on a single signature device at this point. That idea, was completely, July 30th was the lesson, right? Now, a little bit of optimism here, because it is a lot of doom and gloom.
Wait, can we? I do want to have that discussion, but can I get through? Let's get through a little more of it, and then once we wrap up. Sorry, I want to start with the doom, and then I do want to end on a bit of optimism here. So again, just to clarify for you guys, this is an issue for Coldcard users that use the native seed generation from the device. There's, as far as we can tell now, with the best information that we have, if you did roll at least 100 dice with your Coldcard, you should have enough entropy. Now, that's the kind of where Nico was going, the broader conversation of, do you trust Coldcard at this point? But from all we can tell, your seed phrase is, again, from what we can tell, you are safe. If you did the dice roll with a passphrase, a strong passphrase, and that's where it gets a little tricky, you are protected. Now, we did get some rumors over the weekend, and I couldn't confirm them, but we got some unconfirmed kind of accounts that there were some MK4s with weak passphrases, about 2 words. So it'd be your 24 words and then added words, kind of like the 25th word. But the best advice is it needs to be a long passphrase. What we heard is a 24 word with 2 words was cracked over the weekend. Again, unconfirmed. So when it comes to passphrases, again, here is the best advice. If you use a passphrase of sufficient entropy, 128 bits, includes random combinations of the following: 12 BIP, 39 seed words, 10 common words in the English language, 25 mixed lowercase letters and numbers, and 20 if you use the ASC2 characters. So again, this does not include the same word 12 times, 10 words in a sentence, etc. This is a combination of characters and numbers or words, should not have been seen or spoken before then you're protected. Or if you did add external entropy, whether, you know, and it gets debatable, but like if you picked your own seed from a hat or the pills, you know, the word pills out there, or whatever other entropy you may have created, if it's obviously, you know, good enough entropy, you should be protected. So that's what we know as of now of who is affected and who isn't. But again, as of now, I would take the most precaution. And if you had any coin on a Coldcard, I would probably take it out of a Coldcard until the dust settles. There was a hot patch that was released over the weekend, and it basically told you, hey, look, we got a patch for the Coldcard. It'll essentially create a new seed phrase that allegedly has the right entropy. You will move your coins from your old seed phrase to the new seed phrase. That's if you're in a pinch and, you know, you don't want to go the route of an exchange or a hot wallet, or you don't have another hardware wallet, then there is, you know, you could reuse the Coldcard, but I wouldn't recommend that. I did hear some people saying that it bricked their Coldcard with the new firmware update. So again, as of now, I would move away from the Coldcard until the dust settles. Now, to get into a little more information on the hack, as I was saying on Friday, from all of the investigation that we saw, it was a combination of a hacker that had information and used a pretty much, you know, no guardrail AI. So this is from Clay Garrett. He is on the BitKey team. Also, I do want to give a huge shout out to the BitKey team. Yes, they are one of our sponsors. But again, as I mentioned earlier in the show, one of the best parts that we saw was just how the community rallied around this and got everyone the most up-to-date information, the most up-to-date security practices. And the BitKey was one of the shining players. You know, they're one of our sponsors again, but like they absolutely killed it over the weekend. They were one of the shining lights. And here's one of the best takes that we have of exactly what happened, exactly what the hacker did. Again, this is from Clay Garrett. He is on the BitKey team. But they go, during our investigation of the Coldcard drain yesterday, we identified an unusual pattern in the sweeps. The pattern led us to a hypothesis that has since been confirmed. The operator used a paid account at a well-known blockchain service provider to query the source addresses and perform other related activity during the sweeps. We contacted the provider directly. Their internal logs matched the suspected workflow with extraordinary specificity, including the number, timing, and sequence of requests. The provider was supplying its standard services in response to requests that did not reveal their broader purpose. We have seen no evidence that the provider knowingly participated in or facilitated the suspected theft. We are sharing the relevant information with appropriate authorities. We will provide further updates when doing so. So, essentially, what it seems like is that someone was essentially using a blockchain analytics company to get these addresses. And then they used an AI. We don't know exactly which AI they used, but they used the AI to brute force these addresses so that they can brute force the seed phrases from these addresses. And that's why, like, it was a huge thing. That's why it happened so quickly, is because it was using the most up-to-date, we would probably guess, like the, you know, cutting edge AI to do this. And of course, we saw this happen multiple times over the weekend. So our best guess, and I think everyone's best guess, is that it's no longer just a single hacker out there. This has spread to the entire hacker community, hence why we keep saying, get your Bitcoin off of Coldcard as of now to protect yourself. And if you didn't do that already over the weekend when we, you know, raised the alarms, I would totally go and check and move it. Though I did see some unconfirmed reports again this morning that there are white hackers now that are taking some Bitcoin, some vulnerable Bitcoin, which gets into like an iffy area here. But if you did lose your, like if you go into your Coldcard and your Bitcoin is swiped, again, also, best practices, do not get rid of that Coldcard. You're going to have to hold that Coldcard so that you can confirm you actually own that Bitcoin. It is not necessarily gone forever. It could have been a white hat. There might be an investigation into this. There is still a possibility of you getting that Bitcoin back. It is slim, so don't get rid of your Coldcard if you are one of the people that is affected. That's probably the best advice we could give right now for the people that are hurt. I know it's not enough right now, but we definitely got to get this information out there. Now, Going into more of, I guess, maybe the silver lining of all this and what we have seen since this moment is that, again, shouts out to Rob Hamilton and a lot of other Bitcoiners out there. They essentially did the same thing, and now they're running AI on almost every Bitcoin wallet out there, even on Bitcoin Core itself. And there has been some bugs that have been found. Most of the wallets out there, there was no critical vulnerability like the Coldcard. So it does seem to be a specific Coldcard issue. Again, essentially the Coldcard was just not triggering the random number generator. All the other shiny features on top of the Coldcard meant nothing because the seed phrase was predictable. And it was literally like it was the first thing in the list here of what should be done that failed. And that's why this 87, actually now it's what, 90 million. Let me double check. Yeah. 100 million now, 98.8 million hack. So absolutely insane. But again, shouts out to Rob. He's been doing incredible work. I do want to highlight the work that he's been doing. And he basically said he spent 10,000 of his own dollars scanning 100 plus Bitcoin ecosystem related libraries, looking for vulnerabilities with Kimi K3. They've been, like everyone in the space, if they're in custody or at a Bitcoin wallet company, everyone has been working overtime trying to make sure that their code is protected, that other security measures on other, related products are protected. So right now is the worst of it. It seems as though now that we know the hacker used AI to essentially check the code, find vulnerabilities, the white hats are now in the building doing the same thing, and they are disclosing various bugs, big and little, to of course, the team behind it. So there is a little good. Obviously, this does not make anyone feel any better about losing their Bitcoin. But again, it's going to make this whole conversation, I think, with a little more context, like it's not over. That would be my initial take. Now, to update you on exactly kind of some of the movements, interesting, 22,000 Bitcoin hit the exchanges here. So obviously, we have been take your Bitcoin off exchanges for the entire life of this show. But as you can see, when there was a vulnerability, a lot of people, and I would venture to guess that this is obviously not everyone. I don't know the numbers. I'm just spitballing. 30% of Coldcard users went to exchanges, 50%. Obviously, we have no clue, but we did see an influx of Bitcoin hit the exchanges because, and usually more of the very strong security chains. I saw River post about this. Most of the Bitcoiners that I know are not like going to Coinbase. They're going to like River, Strike, Cash App, the strong Bitcoin only companies. Now, to put this in the context, and yes, it is a little bit of bad form here. And I did start the show with saying this is one of the worst days for us in Bitcoin history. And even though we did see a lot of Bitcoin go to the exchanges, I think in context of some of the hacks, it is an interesting point to talk about, okay? Because everyone now is wondering, like, well, what do I do? No hardware wallet is safe, nothing's safe. Maybe I'm just going to go to the exchanges or to IBIT, the ETF, where it's their job, institutional grade custody. Well, we've seen this happen in the past, obviously, Mt. Gox, FTX, etc. And in the context of this, I don't want to say it's a blip that's like bad form. Obviously, if you're affected, this hurts. A lot of people lost their life savings. Like these are our fellow Bitcoiners that got hurt here. But I do want to give a shout out to Luke tweeting this because everyone now is saying self-custody is dead. And as I said on Friday, while it was still a new wound, I was like, I don't think that's the case. Now we have a little more information. I think what Nico did say is probably the best outcome of this. Like single sig is just no longer the way, but the track record of centralized institutions is atrocious. Obviously 100,000 lost from FTX, 65,000 lost from Voyager, 75,000 lost from BlockFi, 235,000 lost from Celsius, 700,000 or 650,000 from Mt. Gox, 60,000 from Quadriga, Genesis 150,000, Three Arrows Capital 175,000. So look, Exchanges as third-party security holders have lost hundreds, if not thousands of times more Bitcoin. Again, that does not make you losing your Bitcoin feel any better. But in the context of the conversation that everyone is having, it's like, where do we move our Bitcoin? I think that's where we can kind of discuss this a little more. Obviously, most people, and we even said it on Friday, it's like, look, I know this isn't the best practices, but right now, since we really had no idea what was going on, move it to an exchange quickly, not for long term, but just until you figure out, we all figure out what exactly is going on. Move to another hardware wallet that is not Coldcard. I even said, hey, look, for very short term, a hot wallet's probably better than leaving it on Coldcard. A desktop wallet. There's Liana, I believe it's how you say it, Sparrow. Like, there is options. It's not over for self-custody. Right now, it's just if you are on Coldcard, I would just move it. I would move it.
Yeah. So, if you have your Bitcoin on a Coldcard, I would literally just take it off the Coldcard, like, immediately. Regardless of whether you use dice rolls to create the entropy. Once something is trust, like, again, what is the core competency of a hardware wallet, right? It's to make sure that your seeds aren't exposed to the internet. So, this any Bitcoin transaction is signed in the secure element on the device, right? That's number one, right? And then number two is the random number generator. So Coldcard failed in the random number generator aspect of this. And I'll get into, kind of like
I think this is like the perfect comment to.
I'll get into, like, kind of like the history behind of how that happened, which is quite interesting. But yeah, at this point, multi-sig should be your default if you store a significant amount of Bitcoin.
Wait. Multi-vendor, multi-sig.
Multi-vendor, multi-sig.
Let's get into this, because that's what everyone wants to know. How do I secure my Bitcoin? So we'll give you the best practices if you're technical, and then what we saw over the weekend. What might be the most convenient and secure way for you guys. So Nico, take it from here.
Yeah. So multi-vendor, multi-sig should be the default. Or you buy a hardware wallet that has multi-sig built in, which is the BitKey device. Also, another big lesson here is any of these hardware wallets that you need, that you're going to use, need to be fully open source. Coldcard wasn't fully open source. They pivoted that. They pivoted in I think it was 2021, and I'll get into the reasons as to why they pivoted. But yes, the hardware wallets that you choose to use need to be fully open source. That's what I think the lesson is here. And then another takeaway from this is two things, right? Since I got into the industry in 2016, this has been by far the worst bear market I have ever experienced. And I'm not talking about price volatility. I'm just talking about the sentiment. And every single bear market has one thing in common. It has one notable company that blows up. Unfortunately, normally those companies are outside of the Bitcoin only ecosystem. This time, one of the companies that blew up in the bear market was within the Bitcoin ecosystem. And that's what makes this so absolutely devastating. And Opti was pulling out the numbers. 22,000 Bitcoin migrated to exchanges. Now, the positive of that, of course, is that Bitcoin isn't going to get stolen from individuals, which is fantastic. But what percentage of that Bitcoin is actually going to make it back into self-custody? What percentage of people are now going to trust in self-custody? So July 30th, we kind of hit the reset button. We now have to build that back up again. And the solutions, the two solutions that exist in terms of how to properly secure your Bitcoin, and especially if it's a large amount of Bitcoin, aren't exactly as easy as the single signature solution. So I think this is a learning experience for all of us. I think that Bitcoin and self-custody is going to be stronger and better than ever, compared to where it was before July 30th. But unfortunately, a lot of people got burnt along the way, and that's absolutely horrific. And, you know, shout out to Rob. He has been doing, you know, Satoshi's work nonstop on top of this. I've been on calls the entire weekend myself, just helping people migrate. This has not been a good weekend. Again, like I think this is literally the worst thing that has ever happened to the Bitcoin movement in its history. You could bring up Mt. Gox, you can bring up FTX, you can bring up all these exchange hacks, but they're not the same. And the reason they're not the same is if you look at all of those things, you could say, okay, well, of course that happened. The reason that happened is because you didn't have Bitcoin in self-custody. The people that were affected by this were people that did everything right. They created their seed on a random number generator on a device that is air gapped, or, you know, perhaps it was plugged into a computer via USB to power the device, whatever. But still, they did everything right, and they were the ones that got affected. So the question right now is, the very idea of self-custody is being questioned. The very idea of you being able to trust yourself taking into Bitcoin into self-custody is being questioned. And that's horrific for our movement. It's horrific because I stand by this. If most of the Bitcoin, if most people on planet Earth are just buying Bitcoin, earning Bitcoin, mining Bitcoin, and then just leaving that Bitcoin on an exchange, or worse, just buying the ETF, absolutely nothing's going to change in this world. Nothing's going to change. If we want to see the world change, we need millions of individuals taking Bitcoin to self-custody. And that just got reversed back at least half a decade. All the progress we've made, in one single day, it got reversed. And that's a humbling moment. And Bitcoin humbles all. The most trusted experts, the most reputable people, we fall into this camp. We're recommending this device. And the device failed. And I think there's a lesson there. There's a lesson there. And the lesson is, don't trust a single point of failure. So moving forward, again, multi-sig is your friend. Fully open source hardware devices, hardware wallet devices are your friend. That's where the future is heading. On July 30th, the idea of keeping your life savings on a single signature hardware wallet ended. It's over. That concept is over. Unfortunately, for the self-custody movement, that was the easiest thing to do. That's why the majority of people, that's what they did. These aren't people that are nerds like me and Opti that literally talk about Bitcoin every single day.
I'm barely a nerd.
These aren't people that are just like, on Bitcoin Twitter. These are people that fundamentally believed in the Bitcoin movement, but they had a regular job. They had their lives. They believed what Bitcoin represented, but they didn't have the time to learn how to create their own entropy rolling dice. They didn't have the time to learn how to use a multi-signature, how to create a collaborative custody, multi-vendor, multi-signature setup. The reason this impacted so many people is because it was the easiest thing. It was the most convenient. And human beings are creatures of convenience. This was the most convenient thing to do for people to reach a form of sovereignty, which is the tragedy of all this, unfortunately.
Yeah. Also, let's talk about, what people can be doing real quick. Obviously, like we've been saying multi-vendor, multi-sig. Okay. That's for the most advanced people. But let me explain this for like normal people. It basically means different devices in a multi-sig from different hardware manufacturing, different companies. Yeah. Yes, I know it's probably the more advanced thing for most people.
But let me kind of like.
So but I want to go from multi-vendor, multi-sig, the BitKey multi-sig setup, which now looks like an option for a lot of people. Obviously, there is rolling the dice, creating your own entropy with passphrases, like the full spectrum of this for people. Yeah.
So you can go like tinfoil hat, right? Which is, if you have the technical ability to do this, I would recommend it. But I would
also very easy to shoot yourself in the foot.
I would caveat that with, if you have the technical ability, because the thing is, like, once your self-custody setup gets more complex, the problem is that you have two things acting against you, right? You want security, but at the same time, you don't want to create so much complexity that you lock yourself out of your Bitcoin. And when you're starting to go down that path, that sovereign path of like, oh, okay, like, I do want to have, I do want to have a multi-sig setup. And you don't have the technical know-how, the technical expertise to set that up, you can lock yourself out of your Bitcoin. I've heard stories. It took me years of experimenting back and forth with different devices for me to fully understand multi-signature on a sovereign level without relying on a third party. So can I expect the average person that, again, believes in the Bitcoin movement, wants to be sovereign, to understand these things? Absolutely not. Can we expect the world to start rolling their own dice to create their own entropy? Absolutely not. It was already difficult to get people to take self-custody in the first place, right? So, expecting that, I think, is a little bit naive on our end as Bitcoiners. Now, Opti asked a question, which is, what is the immediate term? Like, what are we, recommending? I think the easiest thing to do is the BitKey. The BitKey has multi-signature built in. One of the keys lives on the device. One of the keys lives in the secure element on your phone. And then one of the keys live in on the block servers. In order for that Bitcoin to get sent or spent, or however you want to say it, you need at least two signatures. So normally what that would require is you putting your, where's the device? It's right here, I think. Yeah. So what that would require, again, is you putting your fingerprint on the BitKey device, and then you tapping it with your phone signs it as well, and boom, that Bitcoin is sent out. That, I believe, is the easiest solution.
Let's caveat it though. You are trusting BitKey here. They could be the single point of failure.
But again, this is why open source is so important.
Exactly.
Their device is open source. The code is open source, right? So that's one solution.
Probably the most convenient for like 99% of people.
That is what I'm currently recommending to friends and family. Now, for the other side, which is more sovereign, right? Which is setting up your own multi-sig setup. I don't recommend that for 99% of people. It's a tremendous amount of responsibility. I think the best middle ground right now is relying on collaborative custody, which there's two fantastic companies I'm going to name. I would say Numchuck falls into that camp, but I'm not going to name Numchuck because they're creating their entropy through the MK4. So I'm going to, leave them out of the conversation for now. I'm sure they're changing that on the back end. But right now I would recommend either Casa or Unchained Capital. And then what we mean by multi-vendor, multi-sig is basically you buy a Trezor or you buy a Ledger or you buy a Passport from Foundation. And what you do is you create the seeds on the different devices from different manufacturers. So the probability that there's the same bug on the two different devices from the two different manufacturers is significantly lower. Also, because it's a 2 of 3, even if one of the devices had the bug that the Coldcard had, it doesn't matter because the attacker would at least need another key to send your Bitcoin. So let's lay it out in terms of the easiest to the most difficult. The easiest, what I would recommend to friends and family is the BitKey. You can use the promo in the video / podcast description. Again, it has multi-sig built in. All you have to do is you download the app, you put your fingerprint, you tap it on your phone, boom, you're ready to send. That's the easiest. The second is collaborative custody using Casa or Unchained Capital, or I think it's just called Unchained these days. And getting different devices, getting a Ledger, getting a Trezor, setting up your seeds on those two devices independently, and then using their really nice UI. Both Casa has fantastic UI to make this incredibly easy to set up, and Unchained has fantastic UI for you to set this up, and it's incredibly easy. They also have premium tier services. So if you feel like this is above your technical ability, you can hit them up, and there's like a concierge service that you can call them. Also, I recommend our friends over at the Bitcoin Way. They will walk you through this entire process as well on how to set up a proper sovereign multi-sig self-custodial solution for you. So I've given you 3 options so far in terms of easiest to hardest. I would say the Bitcoin Way is before the collaborative custody aspect, using Casa or Unchained. Then the more sovereign tinfoil hat type of Bitcoiner, you won't even need to probably hear this from me because you probably already know how to do it, is setting up a multi-signature wallet yourself using all your own devices on the way that you want to do it, right? And you could do that either on Sparrow or my personal favorite Bitcoin wallet, which is the Electrum wallet, which I think is fantastic. But I have to caveat that with saying, if you don't have the technical know-how on how to do that, do not do that. BitKey first, then Bitcoin Way, then collaborative custody with either Casa or Unchained. The good news is we're going to have experts from throughout the industry this week on today's show to talk about this specific subject matter, because I refuse I refuse for July 30th to be the day that the Bitcoin movement ends. And I'm very specific when I say that, because when I tweeted this out and the tweet blew up, I said, this is the worst for the Bitcoin movement than any major exchange. People are like, how is this worse than an exchange hack? When I say Bitcoin movement, I mean individuals reclaiming back their financial sovereignty by taking Bitcoin into self-custody. That's what I mean by Bitcoin movement. I refuse to say that on July 30th, that movement ended. I refuse to say that. We just have to elevate our game. These products are going to get easier and easier and easier to use. The BitKey is a great example of that. And, you know, guys, like, hodling isn't easy. You know, it really, really isn't easy. Taking custody of your money, taking full sovereignty of your money isn't easy. It isn't easy. It requires a tremendous amount of responsibility. And I think what happened on July 30th is, I think too much trust was put on a single point of failure. And I think that is what resulted in the horrific outcome of people losing their life savings. And my heart goes out to them. I feel terrible. It's atrocious what happened. And we have been consistently, or at least I have been consistently helping people nonstop since the events of that night to try to get them to migrate away from the Coldcard. But we have to move
Wait,
on to
I want to add one thing. Also, Nico ran through, basically the suite of what is the best available tools. I would also kind of want to add in there for people, like, diversify your holdings as well. Maybe don't put everything in one setup and, split whatever your holdings are in half in multiple different setups. Maybe one is in a multi-sig setup and one is, just a slightly different setup, maybe like a truly random seed phrase with a very strong passphrase. Like, you got to think through this, but I would just add to also not only think about, diversifying how you hold it, but also just like diversify your holdings. So if for whatever reason something like this happens again, everything isn't gone in a single setup. So that's just like the other little thing I say. And we do have Luke DeWolf on this, so we will be talking about this more in the culture. Let's hit the first break here, and we get the show rolling. This one's going to be a long one. All right, guys. So we'll be right back. Here's the part that nobody says out loud. Buying Bitcoin on an exchange and leaving it there isn't buying Bitcoin. It's buying an IOU. And the last decade has been a masterclass in what happens when those exchanges don't deliver on their promises.
Bitcoin Well is a self-custody Bitcoin platform. That means that when you buy Bitcoin, it goes straight to your self-custody Bitcoin wallet. You actually own it from the very first transaction. They're available both in the United States and Canada. Pricing is transparent, straightforward, and no nonsense. And if you're buying a larger amount of Bitcoin, Bitcoin Well Infinite gives you concierge-level support through a dedicated executive Bitcoin advisor, premium help for when it actually matters.
You can also stack a little extra through the referral and wishing well rewards. A nice bonus on top of the owning your own Bitcoin thing. So go to bitcoinwell.com/simply and sign up for the Bitcoin Well portal today and buy Bitcoin you actually own. Paper burns, paper floods, paper fades. If your seed phrase is written on paper, it's not really backed up. It's waiting to disappear. Stampseed's DIY kit lets you hammer your seed words directly into commercial grade titanium. Fireproof, crush-proof, waterproof, and permanent. Once your words are in the metal, they aren't going anywhere. Use code SIMPLY at stampseed.com for 15% off anything in the store. That's stampseed.com, code SIMPLY.
All right, everybody, we are back. I do also want to give a huge shout out to, again, the reason I didn't mention this in the beginning, because it's a little bit more technical, but if you do want to go down the rabbit hole, I suggest I'm going to put it in the YouTube and X chat, and I'm going to put it in the Rumble chat. Check out the Seed Signer. It's fantastic. If you want to go down the full sovereignty aspect and you don't want to trust any manufacturer whatsoever, you can build, your own stateless signing device, which is really, really cool. So check out the Seed Signer. It's really, really awesome. I dropped the Seed Signer group in the video slash chat video slash podcast description. You can join them. Again, that group is a great resource because you can go there and you can ask any questions you might have about the Seed Signer, and they'll be able to answer this for you. But again, I have to caveat that with saying it is technical. It is technical. There is a learning curve there. But maybe it's a good thing, right? That Bitcoiners are asking more questions. I've never heard the word entropy used so much until the events of July 30th, right?
Also, it's kind of fun. And for everyone in the chat, that we're not sponsored by them, okay?
Yeah, we're not sponsored by Seed Signer. We're not sponsored by Unchained. We're not sponsored by Casa. These are just...
Or Sparrow. They're good.
We're not, even though Casa was a sponsor at one point, but we're not currently sponsored by them. But these are just suggestions that I'm making based on the events of July 30th. Because again, I think the idea of having your life savings on a single signature hardware wallet, I think we can no longer do that anymore as a community. Luke, welcome to the show. I just want to say the price today. I'm not going to go through everything because obviously we have an important topic. So currently at the time of recording, the Bitcoin price is $63,770. The block height is 960,891. All right, Luke, welcome to the show. It's been an absolutely crazy couple of days. How have you been holding up? What are your thoughts on the events that have happened? I also do want to pull up part of the reason as to why this happened, right? Part of the reason as to why this piece of code was missed. We could actually kind of trace it back to a specific moment where Coldcard specifically pivoted away from being fully open source. Luke, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Hey, Nico. Yeah, well, great to be here. And obviously, it's in pretty crazy circumstances, but yeah, happy to be joining you guys to talk about it. And yeah, I mean, from my side, it's just been trying to keep the people in my local sphere going, right? I mean, I was never a huge Coldcard guy. I had one myself, but yeah, nothing substantial on that. But we've had a ton of people, for example, in Helsinki in our local hub coming to buy replacement hardware wallets, this sort of thing, and just getting in touch with people, staying aware, getting the word out on all channels possible. So I mean, yeah, it's been crazy since the news broke. And I mean, I think I agree with kind of your assessment, at least from what I heard just in the last few minutes. Like this is a big deal, right? It's really getting at the heart of Bitcoin self-custody, and it's not like an exchange where we've kind of been there before. I mean, a lot of people point to Mount Gox. Nobody really knew what was going to happen there, right? But the whole thing with that is that since then, not being on an exchange has been one of the things you just know, and going to self-custody is the answer, right? But if you can't trust that self-custody, that can feel really, really scary. And I mean, the only thing I want to say a little bit, just to reassure people a little, is that I mean, this was just such a catastrophic bug. It was as if you had a 1.25 seed words only equivalent.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Like this. It just mind-boggling, honestly. And then so here, if a hardware wallet like just a proper 12 words is working properly, you are actually okay, right? That is the thing here, is that if it is generating the randomness in the proper way, entropy, as you say, yeah, you're right. It's all good. But the thing is, how can you trust anyone now that this has happened the first time? And so you get all these hardware wallet manufacturers now who are coming out and explaining how they do randomness to generate their seeds, and maybe that's enough for you. But yeah, honestly, the main answer that I'm giving to people is just go for the multi-sig if you can, and of course the other things such as passphrases or dice rolling, things like this. This is all viable, but to me, it's important in the long term that we get back to a place where self custody feels easy. It's not scary. It's not hard to do, so that people aren't just permanently scared away and leaving their funds in the control of BlackRock or Coinbase or ETFs or things like this, right?
Absolutely. I think we have to do our best to move away from, we really have to, and this is the tragedy of all this, Luke, is, you know, you saw this huge movement of Bitcoin into the exchanges when the Coldcard news dropped, right? And what I was saying in the very beginning of the show, Luke, before you joined backstage, is like, what percentage of that Bitcoin is actually going to go back into self-custody, right? Like, that's the kind of tragedy of this. And like, that's the uphill battle we have to fight, right? But you know, and this is why I say this is one of the darkest days, right? Like this 11 years in Bitcoin, July 30th is a day that will live on in infamy. Is the like worst day I've experienced as a Bitcoiner. Forget about the 80% drawdowns. Forget about that, because you're like 80% drawdown. Okay, great. Cheaper Bitcoin. You know, I'm just going to send this into my self-custody wallet. Great. Fine. You know, but the tragedy of all this, as I said in the beginning of the show, Luke, is like the people that did everything right. They stayed humble. They stacked sats. Despite that, if they used Coldcard's random number generator, they got absolutely wrecked. And we've done a little bit of research, and I kind of knew the backstory of this for a while now. And shout out to Zach Herbert from Foundation and the Passport. Also, disclosure, they were a sponsor of Simply Bitcoin at one point. But you know, Zach was calling this out because the timeline of events was this. Coldcard's original software was a fork of Trezor's software. But then on July 20th, in 2020, Coldcard decided to pivot away from fully open source software. And here's the timeline of events. So here's Zach Herbert, CEO and founder of Foundation, or co-founder, better said, co-founder and CEO of Foundation. He says, regarding the Coldcard entropy bug, many folks are explaining what happened, but I wanted to take a minute to explain why it may have happened.
Zoom in.
It's a disastrous situation, and our heart goes out to all the Bitcoiners affected. Here's a timeline of events. On July 28, 2020, Foundation announced our first Passport hardware wallet and noted that we were building on Coldcard firmware, which at the time was GPL-v3 license, free and open source license. On July 30th, 2020, NVK, the CEO of Coldcard, publicly said he regretted choosing GPL because Coldcard now had a clone and that they would change things in the future updates. On November 18, 2020, Coldcard added its MIT Plus Commons Clause license, prohibiting commercial products substantially derived from the software. On January 8, 2021, Coldcard firmware 3.2.1 formally announced license change from GPL to MIT CC on files, which the GPL doesn't apply. CC is the Common Clause license addendum, which is sourced available instead of completely open source. On March 1st, 2021, the first pass with libNGU commit removed the GPL Trezor-derived crypto libraries and replaced them with libNGU. That same 120 file commit changed seed generation. libNGU was licensed with the novel license for Bitcoin only license. So essentially what that means was, it seems, I want to be careful with my words here.
I think just read Zach's at the very bottom. Our best understanding.
Yeah. Okay. So our best understanding right now is that the entropy bug was collateral damage from this major overhaul of the code base. So just think about this for a second. Because Coldcard pivoted away from being fully open source, because they didn't want a competitor to copy their code base, even though they use the code base from Trezor, which is still open source, that seems to be where the bug came into place. If that is true, I think there's a lesson there, right? Which is, what was the priority? Was the priority security for your users, or was the priority having a competitive advantage over someone else? To be clear, this overhaul was not solely about licensing. Coldcard also cited technical goals, including adopting Bitcoin Core's LEPSEC 256K1, faster AES and SHA implementations, and reproducible builds. But the timeline establishes two things. One, Foundation's launch was the obvious impetus for Coldcard's licensing change, and removing the remaining JPL code was an explicit goal of the subsequent V4 rewrite. We don't know by how much the licensing pressure affected the scope or timeline of the rewrite. All we can determine is that the entropy bug was introduced inside the same 120 file commit that removed the old JPL code dependencies. Now, the quote post that Zach posted has now since been deleted, but there is a screenshot of this, and it comes from a video, so I have to pause it. But it is NVK himself admitting, I regret choosing JPL v3 for Coldcard. Quote, now we've a clone if shipped with zero contributions in code / financially. Clone is what you call when someone takes the hard stuff and just changes, etc., etc.
I think it said like window dressing or something like that.
But that goes against the whole, again, you know, I'm not in the hardware manufacturing business, so, you know, judge not the man in the arena. But the whole Bitcoin ethos is built on open source, right? And to my knowledge, Trezor is open source, BitKey is open source, and also
Seed Signer,
Seed Signer is open source, Passport is open source,
Bitbox, I believe, Jade,
Yes.
Bitbox, Jade, they're all open source, right? So, you know, is it a coincidence that the moment that a Bitcoin hardware wallet manufacturer pivoted away from open source, this type of event happened? I'm not going to give my, you know,
I would say we don't know. We're not that technical.
I'm not going to give my opinion on that.
I would say you can't. Okay.
All I'm going to do is just all I'm going to do is just lay out the case that Zach made. And I got to say, Zach has been telling me this for many, many years now. And also our boy Shishi, which I have to give a shout out to as well. Luke, so
and Shishi's been a Seed Signer maxi for years.
And Shishi has been a Seed Signer maxi for years now. So Luke, I want to get your thoughts on this, because those events, man, I mean, if they are true, if they are accurate, if they moved very, very quickly to, you know, make this code basically, you know, licensed or whatever, and the result of that was a catastrophic bug, that's no bueno. I can't say that though, right, Opti?
I don't know. I'm not HR here.
You guys have HR?
Luke.
No, Nico. That's Nico.
Technically, we do have someone who does kind of fill an HR role. But anyhow.
It's just one of our friends. Wait, we shouldn't be joking. Sorry.
Luke, what are your thoughts on this?
The timeline speaks for itself. right? It's crystal clear that the change was made during this period of time when they were going off from the fully open license to one where they say that the code is still out there, right? They make the argument that the code was still out there, but they changed it so that you can't use it, or at least you can't use it in the realm of intellectual property. And I mean, let's maybe not get into all of that, but someone could theoretically use it, but then MDK and Coldcard could sue, which yeah, he seems like he would if that were the case. But the thing is, it disincentivizes the kind of review that would have caught a bug like this, right? Because there's less incentive for, say, a cooperative company, someone in the same business, to take a look at the code and say, hey, maybe this is something I could use. Let's take a look. Let's see if I can find some bugs, right? And you make everyone better together, compete on things like price, a little feature here, a little feature there. But I mean, there's sort of a whole thing in Bitcoin nodes as well, where we're basically getting the consensus kernel exactly right so that no node implementation goes out of consensus. And I know there's some irony saying that exactly at this moment, but that's not forks on exactly the topic of right now. But the whole thing is that the really security critical stuff needs to be right. And the timeline is true. It's public record. The commits are there for when they changed what they did, and it was a really simple bug at the end of the day. And
yeah, Luke, I was just gonna ask you that. Like, I would say you're probably more technical than I am, but could you just explain like how egregious this bug is in the face of, you know, software critical, you know, moves that you can make? Like, how bad was this little, I don't want to say little bug because obviously people lost but a lot of money on this, but for people that aren't as, you know, technical and this just goes over their head, like, I don't want to say amateur, but like how bad of just an oversight did happen to cause this now almost $100 million hack?
Yeah, I won't go too into the weeds exactly, but the whole thing with it was a tiny thing that they changed in order to make their whole suite of code compiling. Something wasn't working with the hardware generator, and so the developer just turned it off. And whether they forgot to turn it back on or just didn't understand the implications of turning it off meant, the code ran. And so literally the comment, because you're supposed to make a comment whenever you change something in code, so that the next guy who's coming in and trying to figure it out, or you in the future, maybe has an idea of what's going on. It should be kind of descriptive, and the number of things that you change should be kept to a minimum, so that you can understand what actually happened. And in the commit, the one change, they changed tons of code. Like, I think it was over 1,000 lines of code or something like this. And the one error, right, that they put in that caused all of this, changing a 0 to a 1 to a 0 here, turning it off, go from running to not running, that was in the middle of this commit. And the comment was, it runs. Okay. So the thing is, this shows me that this is just absolutely a culture of push it through, get it done, make it work, right? Don't follow the steps and procedures that are in place to make sure that critical security code is actually doing what it says it's doing. And they could have tested that the randomness and entropy that they were generating actually worked if they had just generated some, I don't know, it wouldn't have even had to be a lot, like 1,000 keys, some thousands, and looked at them, like looked at the statistical samplings of what the numbers looked like. And they would have seen immediately that there was a pattern, a clear pattern, right? And so the whole thing here is that they made a change without following the procedures that they should have, even if it meant doing a little bit more work. There's some evidence to suggest that this might have been a developer who wasn't so familiar with some parts of the stack they were working with. Might have been a Python developer who wasn't used to using C, or the opposite, something like this. Again, I don't want to speculate. Speculating isn't good here. Going with the facts, but the facts are that they made a crazy change and we're just trying to get it done. And this goes against all best practices in as far as software development lifecycle, secure development lifecycle. This is what we refer to it in the cybersecurity industry. And just honestly, they dropped the ball so badly. And I mean, I almost can't believe that nobody found this issue after so many years. It's been 5 years, right? And so anyone who has generated a seed with a Coldcard, since that firmware update is vulnerable. And just again to the point of that this might have happened due to a licensing dispute. I mean, it's unfortunate. It's petty. I mean, yeah, I have to say that. And while the result is that thousands, tens of thousands of people have been affected by this issue because the Coldcard was supposed to be at least one of the best hardware wallets, and certainly the one with the features that appeal to Bitcoiners, technical people who know what they're doing, things like this. And there couldn't have been a more catastrophic bug. Honestly, there's reports of even in previous years that someone has had their funds lost as soon as they moved their Bitcoin to it. And someone ran the numbers, and I think it was that if they had sold 77,000 Coldcards, the odds of 2 of those Coldcards having the same seed, generating the same seed, was like 75%.
That's insane.
Exactly. So it's almost guaranteed to have happened at least once with their sales numbers. If it had been something like 100,000 Coldcards, it was like 99%.
That's wild. I do want to give a shout out to our boys over at Seed Signer. If you guys want to support the Seed Signer project, this is the QR code that was given to me on the Seed Signer group chat. So again, if you want to support the Seed Signer project, this is apparently the Lightning wallet address that you can send sats to support the Seed Signer project. So give the Seed Signer boys some love, or gals. Free and open source is the way. I see a lot of people in the chat, talking about Seed Signer. So yeah, maybe we do an episode where we bring on the Seed Signer. We've had him on multiple times, but maybe we do a Seed Signer special for you guys. It is a little bit technical. That's the only thing that you got to separate it into 3 groups, I would say, right? Which is, first, if you need any type of advice whatsoever, we recommend our boys over at the Bitcoin Way. 2, if you want an easy plug and play solution that has multi-sig built in, again, completely open source, the BitKey is the way to go. Again, promo in the YouTube/podcast description. And then if you want to have a collaborative custody setup, I recommend Casa or Unchained, where their UI UX makes it incredibly easy for you to set that up. And then if you're on the sovereignty complete maxi camp, where you want to set all of this stuff up yourself, again, go check out the Seed Signer and wallets like the Electrum wallet, which I personally love, and then the Sparrow wallet, all give you the ability to set up a multi-signature within that software. And again, all that software is open source as well. So guys, we're going to move on to the next segment, and we're going to continue this conversation. We're going to be right back just after the break. I want to give a shout out to our partner, Ledn. Here's something most Bitcoin holders never figure out until it's too late. You're sitting on wealth you can't touch without selling. Ledn fixes that. Bitcoin-backed loans. You keep your stack, you get cash. And they just introduced their lowest rates ever. No complexity, no fine print. The larger the loan, the lower the rate. These new rates apply to all new loans, refinances, and renewals. You'll see all the rates up front before you apply. The new, lower rates come with Ledn's gold standard protection. Your Bitcoin remains custodied and is never lent out for interest. Perfect 8-year track record of keeping clients' assets safe. Auto top-ups, LTV alerts, and partial repayments to keep you in control. Repay whenever you want with 0 penalties or monthly payments. Ledn's perfect $10 billion track record through every market cycle in the last 8 years speaks for itself. Don't choose between a great rate and the safety of your Bitcoin. Get both at Ledn. If you ever thought, what happens to my Bitcoin if something happens to me? Or what happens if I lose my phone? You're not alone. For a lot of people, the biggest barrier to self-custody isn't buying Bitcoin. It's the fear of making a mistake. And that's why I like Bitkey, and I recommend it to my friends and family. Bitkey is a Bitcoin wallet built for real life, not just for day one, but for everything that happens in between. Lost devices, upgrades, accidents, and long-term ownership. There's no seed phrase to write down and worry about losing, and no single point of failure that can lock you out of your Bitcoin forever. What really stands out about Bitkey is the peace of mind. Recovery is built in, inheritance is built in. It's a complete self-custody system built by the team behind Square and Cash App, designed to make holding your own Bitcoin simpler and safer. Take self-custody of your Bitcoin today using Bitkey. Go to bitkey.world and use promo code SIMPLY for 10% off your new Bitkey. That's bitkey.world, promo code SIMPLY. I want to give a shout out to our partner, HIVE Digital Technologies. Fueled by clean energy across 3 continents, HIVE runs dual engines, Bitcoin mining and AI compute. Their AI platform is ranked #1 in the world for network performance, and it's doing something bigger than compute. It's accelerating human discovery, the science, the breakthroughs, pushing humanity further and faster. Listed on the NASDAQ with the ticker HIVE. Catch the latest buzz at HIVE Digital Tech on X or hivedigitaltech.com.
You secured your Bitcoin, but did you secure your devices too? They're still broadcasting your location and digital footprint. GPS, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, cell, 5G, EMF, all of it is leaking. Escape Zone fixes that. Their Faraday bags block every signal your device emits, so you decide when you're detectable, not the grid. Built for Bitcoiners who know sovereignty isn't just your wallet. It's your phone, your hardware wallet, your keys, and your entire digital life. Go to escapezone.com/simply and use code SIMPLY for 10% off. That's escapezone.com/simply, code SIMPLY. All right, Luke. Well, we originally invited you and scheduled you to come on for the BIP 110, drama argument. It is going to, activate, or at least the activation date is 5 days. So end of the week. But I think in the context of everything that has happened, over the weekend, you did write the book, Protecting Bitcoin. And there's many different facets of this. So I think maybe we can do a little BIP 110 stuff, thoughts before it happens to wrap up the show. But I think maybe going back down, how to protect your Bitcoin is probably the most valuable conversation for a lot of people. And I know a lot of people are tired. They're like, all right, we've been talking about this for 2 hour and a half, almost 2 hour shows now. But I think we want to just continue to give you guys the best tools and the best possible information here. So, Luke, I'll pass it to you. We've been kind of breaking this down in, like Nico was saying a minute ago, we've been breaking it down from more of the novice Bitcoiner to obviously the full suite, from novice to completely cypherpunk, fully technical. So how are you dealing with this conversation now? Obviously, there's even a new, a lot of Bitcoiners now are like, I don't even know if I ever want to recommend anything ever again. So, we have a full spectrum of conversations happening since, of course, July 29th. So how are you dealing with this conversation? And what are you kind of recommending, if you are recommending right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's scary times, obviously. And if you ever had your Bitcoin in self-custody, or you took it into self-custody, the first time you ever send it is a little bit scary. Did I do this right? Did I send it to the right address? But the thing is, Bitcoin is built on cryptography, right? This is how all of this is set up and laid out. And it really is math. And the thing is, the math didn't break. It was just the Coldcard's math was faulty, So what I keep telling people is that don't give up on self-custody as a concept. And frankly, all of these devices, no other wallet is getting hit, no other wallet at all. Okay, so it's not like there's Coldcard and someone else, Coldcard and this or that other soft wallet, hot wallet, whatever. No one else is getting hit. No one else had this bug. So the entropy generation thing, right? If you get it past a certain threshold, it's just mathematically not going to be a factor, you know? And so this isn't to say just blindly trust, but the hardware manufacturers and even just the software wallets that can tell you exactly where the randomness is coming from, you can at least have a bit of a safety net in terms of understanding that they did at least fix this particular bug, or they did avoid something that was just a catastrophic failure of their seed generation, right? Because everything comes down to the seed. And when you have a multi-sig, for example, you're taking multiple seeds and saying you have to sign with those multiple seeds. And so what I'm saying to people, if you're worried about this, go the multi-sig route. The multi-sig route gives you multiple levels of security and redundancy. So BitKey, as an example, yeah, great. Like, go that route. That's fantastic. Making that accessible, that's of course difficult. So, I mean, if you're falling back on just the single seed hardware wallet, just know what you're getting into, what you're buying. Like, it might be hard to say that you can eventually trust in some hardware wallet manufacturer, whatever. But you and that's not necessarily what I'm saying, but people are on a journey, right? And getting into the journey of taking their Bitcoin into self-custody, getting them off of exchanges, right? The average person isn't going to dive right into setting up a multi-sig, a multi-vendor multi-sig immediately, right? So having hot wallets, software wallets that actually do have good randomness. I mean, I think Bull has been great. Aqua Wallet has been great in terms of showing how they get their randomness and generate their seeds, right? And the other thing too is that generating a seed can be something that you do in one system and you import it into another one. Seed Signer is fantastic. I love that you guys are talking about this, but again, it's accessibility, right? And so what I keep saying is that the math itself just isn't broken, and no other wallet is being hit. Recommending self-custody to people is still a good thing to do compared to leaving it on exchanges. Now, the flip side here too, though, if you really feel that right now that leaving it on exchange is your only option and you'd really rather just get all of the risk out of your hands, okay, you're taking on a different kind of risk, that the exchange is going to have some kind of issue or, you know, block your account, rug you, whatever. Those risks are generally fairly low, but an exchange fails every once in a while, like we've seen, or shuts down. Shutting down is better than failing catastrophically. But yeah, it happens. And of course, you might have seen these graphics going around or what have you, charts that show that the amount of Bitcoin lost over exchange hacks or failures is way more than in this Coldcard issue, right? So that's the thing, is that these exchanges might have good security, better security than you can do yourself, theoretically, but then you're putting all your trust in a third party, and that's giving up on almost the entire value proposition of Bitcoin. So I've said a couple of times, do this temporarily. If you have a Coldcard MK3 with funds on it, single sig, send it to an exchange if you really don't have any other easy option that you're comfortable with. Temporarily. Your coins on an exchange are better than losing your coins, right? Not your keys, not your coins has layers. So then maybe get out to any kind of self-custodial Bitcoin, right? Yeah, again, the Bulls, the Aquas, Sparrow lets you connect a bunch of different wallets, things like this. Go with a hardware wallet of your choice. One is better than none, you know, and then get into multi-sig eventually when either you have enough funds for it or you understand the security picture and you think it's time, you're ready, something like this. But the end result for many reasons is the multi-signature. That's what gives you the best security and the best redundancy, and getting there is the goal. Absolutely.
Yeah. Nico does want to chime in, but I do kind of want to hit on, and unless you want to hit on this topic right here, but I do kind of want to hit on just I think the general view right now, you said it best, everyone right now, I think on Friday, every one of us were like, okay, Coldcard's down. Who can we trust? Now, obviously, with more information, we realized it was a Coldcard specific problem. But there was that meme kind of going around of the AI versus Bitcoin war right now. And so I think that does bring in like the broader conversation of trust. And I think a lot of people in the chat are also kind of wondering, it's like, who knows if AI is going to be able to do this, on other wallets right now. And that's kind of where I think the conversation has led to, is everyone's just wondering, like, I know I was feeling that, Friday to Saturday. I'm like, wait, are we all cooked here? Now we know it was just a Coldcard issue, but it does bring in the broader conversation of long-term storage. What can we trust? Are these AI models going to be able to crack more wallets and brute force more seeds? It's like, we are in a new paradigm now. So like, what do you think about that topic?
Well, two things. First of all, I did cover AI in Defending Bitcoin as part of my last chapter, Quantum and AI. But I'll be honest, I didn't anticipate things going this far this quickly in terms of AI being able to outpace so many things and find bugs so quickly. That's basically what I talk about, is that two things. AI competes for the Bitcoin mining side, and that's its own concern, but maybe will sort itself out. But AI being able to put resources in the hands of in the hands of attackers that defenders need to match, that's a whole different story, right? And I mean, I give credit to guys like Rob Hamilton, who is really spearheading the way in terms of taking the fight to the attackers. He's talking about spending tons of money on tokens, just checking every open source Bitcoin project out there, auditing its security, and I mean, I think this is the answer. There's a proof of work analogy, right? That the attackers are putting so much, a certain amount of compute into these cyber attacks. The defenders are going to need to put a commensurate amount on the defense side. But the thing is, if we all work together and make sure that the code is truly open source, I mean, I can't stress that enough. Like, that's got to be the case. The code has got to be out there to be audited. And yes, the attackers might have access to it too, but if the defenders go and do their security audits and check this stuff, I mean, when it comes to a security audit, AI is fantastic because honestly, when the AI isn't generating code, it's just looking at what it does and tracing pathways, things like this. It's seriously gotten to a crazy level. And yeah, honestly, I didn't think it was going to get this crazy this quickly. But the real silver lining here, I mean, it didn't change math. This isn't quantum computing here that's going at the very cryptography that underpins Bitcoin. You know what I mean? Brute forcing only goes so far. And yeah, the thing is, they can go a little bit into the kind of search space, but there's a limit, right? You can't just feed AI or compute or whatever a limited number of seeds and just say go. It's not going to be able to do it for really truly random seeds, right? So none of that math broke, but unfortunately, there was the most critical of critical flaws in hardware wallet or seed signing device, seed generation device, if you want to use different terms, in one of the most popular, well-recommended, Bitcoiner trusted devices out there. And that's terrible. And if it's the first major casualty of, I'm already seeing it get called the token wars.
Yeah.
Well, the defense side, Bitcoiners are going to need to put up the defense. And yeah, again, credit to Rob Hamilton and others out there who are really putting their money where their mouth is and like going hard against this stuff. And I'm really liking kind of the feel of everyone coming together to work on this. I mean, people spending their time to educate, help people that they personally know, and yeah, really try and get as many people out of this issue as possible. And yeah, I hope the coming few days, weeks, we see a light at the end of the tunnel, but it could just be getting started where things that we took for granted in the Bitcoin ecosystem are just getting attacked because the attacks are easier. And so I'm hopeful, cautiously optimistic that maybe we can get a handle on this, we Bitcoiners collectively, but we're going to have to put that compute in and match that up against the attackers. It's proof of work, just by a different name.
So I do want to get into incredible takes like always, Luke, and also before we get into this rabbit hole and then we'll wrap up today's show. I do want to give a shout out to a conference that Luke helps organize, which is BTC Hell. It's a BTC Helsinki. Okay. To be precise, right? If you just say BTC Hell, you're like, what? But yes, they throw this
name.
awesome. Exactly. They throw this amazing conference in Helsinki. First time I ever went to Helsinki. Last venue you guys threw it in was this train state, this old train station in Helsinki, and so much signal. Jeff Booth was there. Who else was there? Adam Back was there. It was awesome. I had a great time. A lot of signal, and you guys are throwing it again this year, which is really cool. So, wanted to give a shout out to BTC Hell. And for the American audience, it's BTC Helsinki, but it's called BTC Hell. I definitely recommend it. It's one of the best Bitcoin conferences of the year. I went last year. It was fantastic. Okay, so going back, and I kind of want to just end the show with this specific concept. And Opti warned me not to start the show with this, so I saved it towards the end of the show. If you guys are still listening. For me, Luke, the idea of relying on a random number generator from a device was always a little bit, it was always, to me, there was always something that I was just, because you're putting a lot of trust in that random number generator. And if that random number generator works, you're golden, right? But the whole movement, the whole Bitcoin movement was this idea of trust minimization, right? So one of the ways that you can do that is actually creating your own entropy, right? And the seed signer device allows you to do this with dice, and I believe with coin tosses as well. The Coldcard device uses this as well, but I don't recommend using that at the moment for obvious reasons. And then also, if you're like top paranoia, which I did this a couple of years ago, you literally just print out all the words, cut them up into little pieces, put them all in a bowl, and then like literally mix up the bowl like crazy and pick out each individual word one by one, and then put the word back in, mix it again, mix it.
I think that's lower entropy than the dice is, if I'm not mistaken, but yeah.
Because then you're not really like, yes, the device will finish the last word for you, right? But the first 23 words, you're controlling your own destiny, so to speak, right? You are the one creating that entropy, right? Via the dice rolls, via the coin tosses, via what I did, which is just, take out all the words, put it in a bowl, and like literally mix it like a maniac. So my question to you, Luke, is that crazy? Like, can you even create enough entropy doing that? Doing it manually yourself via coin tosses, dice, or literally cutting out the words and putting it into a bowl. Is that a viable option? Is that going to create, enough entropy?
Well, I'll agree with Opti that I think the shuffling in a bowl thing has a way of introducing bias into it. So I'm not going to say that that's the top best. It's for sure better than what Coldcard had. The dice rolls is definitely one thing. You can do coin tosses as well. It takes a lot longer. But yeah, it's absolutely doable. Seed Signer also even supports taking a picture, I believe, and you can derive enough entropy with that, or combine it with other methods, and so you can. There are ways to do this. I was seeing another post today. I think it was Gary Cardone who said that there's zero chance that institutions do this. You know what I mean? There's zero chance that people who are used to the legacy capital system, or even your mom and pop who is used to having a bank account, you know what I mean, is going to do this. So I mean, it's not crazy to do this at all. It's just that this is going to be the fringe of the fringe, right? And so my whole thing is getting out of this in an accessible way that still makes self custody approachable for people. And okay, maybe dice rolls are interesting and novel, and you can make it fun a little bit. Like, hey, let's roll these dice, and this is why you do it, and it's educational. But you need someone who's already primed and kind of ready to do this. But at the end of the day, the 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 hardware manufacturers really do make sure that they get randomness from many different sources and don't have any one single point of failure. I think Trezor has 3 or 4 methods depending on the model. Bitbox has 5, right? The others are all publishing their methods, and if they give you some kind of way of adding entropy yourself, I like the picture method because it's simple enough. Like just take a picture of something, anything, you know,
Not a white wall.
Exactly. No, a perfectly white would be kind of rare, but yeah, take a picture of something with some detail, and there are even ways of checking, is there enough entropy in this pattern, something like this. So yeah, it's just about finding solutions. So go and do this if you're inclined. I think I'm more willing to go the route of go with established manufacturers, more than one, and do a multi-sig there that lay out what their processes are. I mean, we can go down the list. Again, Coldcard is the only one that's been hit here, and it's because of a catastrophic bug that was introduced during a period when they were rolling their own crypto, right? And doing that without the full scrutiny and cooperation of the community seems to have been the mistake, right? So going to into the future, being able to, okay, yes, trust, but verify to whatever extent. I'd love to see hardware wallet manufacturers and wallet manufacturers in general just give more ways of doing that randomness yourself. That isn't so hard to do that it's going to put off your institutional investors, things like this, because at the end of the day, we do want everyone onto Bitcoin, right? And taking their coins into self custody. So making that accessible and making that easy enough to do that people will do it is the goal here. So
Absolutely,
it's going to be a journey, but let's get there. Is my point.
Absolutely.
Wait, can I chime in here a little bit? I totally agree with what Luke was saying and what Nico was asking. And I don't mean to be like a wet blanket here, but like the mimetic power of like telling people to literally roll the dice on their self-custody, it's just like, no, I don't think, unless you're like a hardcore Bitcoiner and you understand what that means, I don't think many people are going to do it. Like literally just think of roll your dice for your seed phrase. It's like, I think people are just going to be like, I don't know.
Exactly. And this is why, this is why you don't want to have a single point of failure. Right, because if you had,
agreed, but I'm just saying, I don't think
if you had
99% of people probably aren't going to do it. If you tell them roll the dice for your seed phrase, they're going to be like, "Do you know that like yeah, you want me to roll the dice for my generational wealth?" It's just like
if you had a multi-vendor multi-sig, right? Even if one of those vendors had a catastrophic mistake, like what happened yesterday, you're not affected. You literally just switch out the key. And you'd go about your day. Like there's literally no problem, right? So this is the power of multi-sig. And then of course, again, another shout out to BitKey. This makes it easy just in one device, right? It has multi-sig built in. One of the seeds lives in the device itself. The other seed lives in your phone. It surprisingly, believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, one of the most secure elements and one of the best secure elements are on your phones. Right, like if you have an iPhone or an Android, like literally, it's like one of the best secure elements, because it's like that's where Apple Pay. Like if you have like any of these payment, it lives in the secure element of your phone. Like when you open your phone and it has the Face ID, that lives in the secure element of your phone, right? And these are huge corporations. Like this is Apple we're talking about, right? So it's not like a secure element that you're buying from a manufacturer, right? So again, you're not just trusting the secure element on your phone, right? You're also trusting the secure element on a separate device. This all goes back to, again, creating multiple signatures for your Bitcoin. So if one gets compromised, you have another, right? And that removes the single point of failure, which was, I think, the biggest lesson of the day of infamy of July 30th of 2026 is don't have a single point of failure. And we should be moving towards, I don't know why we drifted away from it, but we should be moving towards Bitcoin hardware wallets being open source so that the community could be looking at what's going on behind the scenes. Before we wrap up today's show, I do want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Ocean. Guys, help decentralize the Bitcoin mining movement or the Bitcoin mining industry. Point your miners at mine.ocean.xyz:334. Take control of your Bitcoin mining. Make more money. The industry's lowest fees and most transparent payouts. Go to ocean.xyz today. Guys, literally just by pointing your miners to Ocean, you're helping decentralize the Bitcoin mining pool problem, which is a big problem. It's like 3 pools have more than 51% of the hash rate. So yes, guys, go check out ocean.xyz. And again, they support, I know this is a little bit controversial, ladies and gentlemen, but they do support BIP 110. Right?
Yeah, we didn't get to it, Luke. I think we're going to be super busy. I know that's why we rescheduled you on the show, but hey, you know,
yeah, so
life happens.
Hey, you want me to come back at the end of the week? I'm available.
So Ocean does support BIP 110. And if you want to stick with Core, you could stick with Core.
I think
too.
a better way to say it gives you the option.
Gives you the option to stick with Core. You could do with Core. But regardless, if you mine with Ocean, it helps decentralize the Bitcoin mining pool problem in the Bitcoin network overall. And I think it's incredibly important. I do want to give a shout out to our guest today, Luke DeWolf, helps organize the BTC Helsinki conference for the American listeners, and also co-host of the Bitcoin Infinity Show with my friend Knut Svanholm. All right, look at that! Like I got my I got my pronunciations right and everything. It's because of my time in Helsinki, all the saunas and the cold plunges.
Got it, man.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Never a dull day in Bitcoin, ladies and gentlemen. So yes, I know a lot of you guys are going to be doing a lot of research. Again, we dropped the Seed Signer Telegram group in the chat. You guys could jump in there. Again, I think the BitKey is a fantastic solution. And again, multi-vendor, multi-sig collaborative custody with Unchained or Casa is also an excellent option as well. All right, everybody. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Appreciate it. If you guys like the show, smash the like button, consider subscribing, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care, everybody.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.